I remember very well being at Ford Motor Company, and Nancy Bedore at that time was the most senior woman at Ford Motor Company. And she had called a meeting of her top 12 reports, all of whom were men. And this occurred in the Henry Ford room, which was a very grand conference room with a huge picture of Henry Ford hanging up there on the wall and view of River Rouge out the windows in downtown Detroit. And she had, it was an important all morning meeting. And she had only left, this is pre-cell phone, so she had left word, there was a telephone in the room, but she left word with her assistant that she would only take 2 calls. One from the man at that time who was on board to be CEO of Ford Motor Company next time around, and the other was from her father-in-law who was taking care of her 2-year-old that morning. And of course the call from the father-in-law came, and Nancy picked it up, and she, right there at the desk, at this huge, very impressive desk, and you could hear her on the phone for a minute, a couple minutes. She'd say, well, did you feed her apple juice or raspberry juice? Or did she throw up? And this sort of question, trying to find out what was going on with her 2-year-old. And she had that conversation briefly, and then she hung up. And I looked around that room, and it was very apparent to me that there were a couple guys in that room who felt I did not claw my way to this level of Ford Motor Company to sit in a room listening to a woman talking about her baby vomiting. They weren't comfortable with it. And afterwards, I asked Nancy, I said, I really felt like a couple of those guys weren't comfortable with that conversation you had, however brief it was. And I said, are you aware of that, and is that a deliberate thing? She said, yes, it's deliberate. She said, first of all, I would not take the time to leave the meeting and go down the hall and have this conversation. She said, I think that would be very inefficient. She said, but much more importantly, I want to send the message to these people on my team that I value them as whole people, that I understand they have lives, that I understand they have other responsibilities, that I understand that those responsibilities can sometimes bleed over into their work. And she said, I feel that I set that example and tell them that by this kind of behavior. She said, so that's a very deliberate leadership decision that I make.